Hello, and welcome to this session of the Potential Online Montessori Conference. This is a mental health in the Montessori home session. You're in the right place if you're here to learn about the three main aspects of life with your child at home that supports their emotional regulation and their mental health. My name is Blanca Velazquez Martin. It is an honor to be back at this conference that reaches so many of you in so many areas of the world and be able to share a little bit about how I support parents and families in their support of emotional development, particularly in consideration of the Montessori philosophy. I am a child psychotherapist here in the United States. I specialize in supporting families with young children with behavior, emotional development, and also school environments, particularly Montessori environments. The Montessori philosophy is really close to my heart because I grew up as a Montessori child. It is a philosophy that I have integrated in my life as a parent, in my life at home with my child, and now I also integrate it in my work as a therapist and in the work that I do with families and other educators. Today, it is an honor to finally present a session that actually blends both of the things I do, supporting emotional development and supporting the child's mental health, and the integration of the Montessori philosophy, for which now we have a lot of scientific evidence about the huge impact that it has for nurturing positive outcomes in emotional development. We're going to talk about all of that today. So, just to clarify, what is early childhood mental health? So, early childhood mental health is the growing ability for children to, I'm so sorry, the growing ability for children to develop secure, close relationships. It means children building secure, trusting attachments with their parents and other caregivers in their lives is their ability to experience and express, again, a wide range of emotions, including anger, including sadness, including all of those tricky emotions that challenge us adults, but that they need to experience and live fully to learn what to do with them, understanding and expressing them, and beginning to practice what to do with them. And growing confident in engaging with their surroundings, which is a key for learning, being able to act based on their curiosity and their love for learning and exploration. Mental health is a crucial aspect of your child's overall development, one that even if you don't know, you're supporting and contributing to daily with everything that you do in your daily life with your child. Mental health is not the absence of difficult or challenging emotions. Mental health doesn't mean not having anxiety, fear, anger, and having outbursts of emotions at times. In fact, mental health is the ability that we have as humans to feel a wide range of emotions, including being in tune with times when we feel fear or high levels of anxiety or high levels of sadness or anger as a result of a natural response that we have for something that is happening in our lives that causes those emotions. Mental health is knowing that all of those emotions are part of our lives, that they're valid, and having the ability to be able to walk through those emotions effectively in a way that still allows us to function in the various areas of our lives. For children, what that means, it's a little bit different than for adults because they are just now learning how to feel. The first plane of development, ages 0 to 6, are the most crucial building blocks for supporting emotional development. And all of this self-regulation emotions. We're setting down the foundation, but it's a foundation that looks kind of messy and that feels messy as we're supporting the child's journey through all of those feelings that they're still learning to identify, still learning how to feel, and then that they don't yet have all of the tools to navigate them through. So today we're going to talk about first we're going to talk about three main elements for supporting mental health in your home with the Montessori philosophy in mind. And the first element will be knowing that an adult who offers responsive and consistent attunement to the child's needs is a key element of supporting emotional development in the home, in any home. Maria Montessori, however, was on the right track when she highlighted again the prepared adult as the most important element of the environment. When the adult shows up ready, to model what emotion regulation looks like and to know when to step back as the child is learning, guiding them and setting up the environment to do that. That is so much of the work done that we now know through science supports emotional development in the long run. The second element that we're going to talk about in supporting mental health in your home will be guidance for development emotion regulation skills. Um, the ages from 0 to 6 is an age of rapid, massive growth in evolving skills in various areas, particularly for emotion regulation. The first 6 years are shaping the neural pathways for emotion and regulation patterns and resilience in your child's brain. Literally, how their brain is wiring for receiving and processing emotions and knowing what to do with them. So, what we do to support these skills matters greatly at this age. So, when you think about teaching them about emotions, teaching them about deep breaths and regulation skills, that's what this means. But as you can see, it's only one of the aspects. The third aspect is offering opportunities for building autonomy and a sense of belonging. This is where the Montessori philosophy shines, where we now have so much scientific evidence and literature to tell us that autonomy supported parenting practices that offer the child opportunities for developing independent skills at home and practicing doing things by themselves with the necessary limits in scaffolding, nurtures self regulation, intrinsic motivation, executive functioning, confidence, all key elements of supporting mental health in the long run. So let's start with the first element of supporting child's mental health in your home, which is the self regulated, responsive adult. One of the strongest predictors that science today shows us for supporting mental health, not just now as your child is growing, but what will determine their mental health for years to come, is having an adult at home that is themselves regulated, that models self regulation and walks emotions effectively as they're parenting, and that is showing up with a responsive, firm, but kind and warmth attunement to the child's behavior and emotions. What that means is that when your child challenges you as they're learning how to feel and as they're trying to figure out everything that's going on with their emotions and they're showing it through your behavior, that your child is experiencing consistent boundaries and a consistent, firm, but warm approach to them learning what to do with those emotions. Now, I mentioned the word attunement, knowing what the child is going through, seeing an emotion, seeing that they're having a hard time, being able to have empathy for them in that moment, validating the experience, guiding them on what the boundaries and what we're going to do about it. That is attunement, right? But sometimes it's a little bit hard to know what is it that you are attuning to and what to do about it in a way that honors their emotion, but also provides assertive guidance. This is a point where the prepared adult needs to understand a little bit more about what is happening with the child's brain. So now you know that, and we have talked about this, that mental health is not the absence of anxiety, anger, sadness, or tricky emotions. We know that now, right? But we also can't deny that typically we expect or aim for a child to show this list of things as signaling that their emotional development is evolving and that they're able to regulate themselves. So things that we usually expect and aim for as part of a healthy emotional development evolution is a child that is able to consider a positive alternative when upset. So if they disagree with something, we can tell them, well, the options are this or that. And eventually they're like, fine, I'll do this one. Making choices within the limits that are available or the environment that you have set up. So today there's the green shoes or the red shoes. Which one would you like? I want rain boots. Well, today the options are tennis shoes, green or red, and they're able to make a choice. Stay regulated through it, knowing that there are limits to the choice and being able to make a choice and move forward. Verbalizing how they feel and knowing then the emotions that they're feeling and being able to share them with you and knowing when to share them. Finding a solution for challenges, waiting for their turn, impulse control, making eye contact with you when they're problem solving, engaging in a conversation with you, telling you what happened after something that they didn't like happened, or telling you how they feel, why they made a specific choice, or why they were upset. participating respectfully with others, such as what I mentioned earlier, like taking a turn, regulating their body and knowing how to regulate their body in different types of environments. Like, for example, going to church and temple is different from going to a restaurant, different from being in a classroom, different from being at home or at a party. Impulse control and concentrating in their work. So, all of this is beautiful and things that we aim for, things that are going to happen as your child grows and develops skills. But it's important to know that all of this, and the reason I have the brain here, is because all of these beautiful skills belong in the executive brain, what we're going to refer to as a thinking brain, a part of the brain that when it's online, it's able to either learn, ask, well, what can I learn from this? Can you show me? And being able to receive that information and take it and even use it when they're ready. When this part of the brain is on, they're able to retrieve this information if they've learned it, and they're able to act on it, like making choices, finding solutions, telling you how they feel. But the thing is, as prepared adults, and as we think about how to attune to the child, as I mentioned, is knowing that sometimes the child is going to be in their thinking brain, but other times they're going to be in one of the other modes of their brain, which is not just executive brain, but the brain, when it's feeling emotions and showing those emotions through behavior, is sometimes engaging the emotional brain, to the limbic area of the brain, or sometimes children or people in general are functioning from a survival brain, that amygdala, that fight or flight response. So at times, what we see when it comes to the child's emotions may be low frustration tolerance. You see tears and whining, and I don't like that word whining, but a voice and a level that kind of challenges us and triggers us because they're going through something and they're showing it through that tone. Spitting, pushing, throwing, biting, what we sometimes interpret as rude behavior or rude words. I don't like this. I hate you. Or like slamming doors or throwing something. Overall, being clingy, impulsive, not waiting, withdrawing, or resisting from participating or from collaborating with you. Here's the important thing, and that why I show you the difference between the green list and knowing that they can access this is in your child's brain. The capacity to learn this and act on this is there, but it's not there. It's offline if their brain is in an emotional state. If their brain is in those more blue brain area where what they're showing you is what their brain is capable in that moment. It doesn't mean they are clingy. It doesn't mean they are whiny. It doesn't mean they are rude. It means their brain is asking, am I loved right now? Do you get that these are not the shoes I wanted? Do you get that I'm so tired and I just want to go home and I don't want to be in this restaurant? Do you understand I've been at school all day and the last thing I want right now is to go to Target or go grocery shopping? Do you get this? And I don't have the language to tell you yet. I don't have the words. I don't have the system to regulate my emotions enough to pause my body and tell you that I'm having a hard time. I'm going to show you that I'm having a hard time with this list of undesired challenging behavior. But it's very important at those moments that we as adults, as prepared adults, as responsive, attuned adults, that we understand that we are responding to is not rudeness or clinginess, because if we get into that mindset, we're going to respond harshly or from a place of judgment or even judging our own parenting. But knowing that this is normal part of how their brain operates and that what you're seeing is simply the child going through a stage of dysregulation that needs attunement and support. Consistent, kind, firm limits, but attunement and support. Sometimes the behavior is a little bit trickier. Sometimes we see things like physical dysregulation, like thrashing or hitting or biting. Those moments are so hard to respond to as adults. I really, I know, believe me, I've been there. I understand it. Sometimes we get this unexpected, intense meltdowns, or the nonstop running, or the throwing materials, or and us trying to talk to them, trying to validate their emotions, and the child is simply not online. These are the moments when we're experiencing the child's more survival brain. When the child, something happened, they don't feel safe. They're in such a state of dysregulation that their brain is working from a fight or flight mode, a survival, simply asking, am I safe here? Like, I no, I cannot engage in deep breathing. I do not want to take one of your choices. I don't even care that you're trying to tell me how I feel and trying to help me that way. I'm not online. That part of the brain actually doesn't even respond to language. And we're going to talk about then what to do. So, supporting your child's mental health as a prepared adult during moments of big emotion means engaging in co-regulation. When your child's prefrontal cortex, when their thinking brain is not online, they need to borrow yours. And that is what we refer to as co-regulation. The opposite of us showing up screaming, matching their energy, they get loud, so we get louder. That's the opposite of showing them what calm looks like. So it's basically what I like to remind people when I talk about co-regulation is letting them borrow your self-regulation, letting them borrow your calm, letting them borrow your thinking brain in that moment, and showing them what that feels like, sometimes without words. When you see behavior like the one that we talked about in the red brain, usually that means showing the co-regulation, letting them borrow or calm, moving to a less stimulating environment. Again, not as a negative consequence, as a timeout, or let's take you to your room so you can calm down, but actually doing it with them. Moving to a quieter place or a different corner of the room, or yes, sometimes moving them to a different room where there's less noise or less people, but not as a punishment or a negative consequence, but as a way of you knowing that the brain needs less stimulation, needs to feel safe. Remember, this part of the brain is asking, am I safe? And sometimes the environment is signaling the brain to stay in fight or flight mode. So removing a child into a more calm environment is sometimes part of supporting them if we are there with them, sharing our calm, not as a negative consequence, but as a way to help them regulate their brain. An adult that is showing their presence, I kind of mentioned this already, at eye level. At eye level, me kneeling down to meet you at eye level instead of talking from up here, standing up to your small body, and you see me from so high up. When I'm meeting you at eye level and you're a young human, that's telling you I'm a safe person. We're at the same level. I'm here to help you. And then sometimes humming, singing, hugging. We do that not because we're being permissive or because we don't want to set a limit or because I don't want to teach you about what to do instead. But in those moments, I'm stopping. I'm not saying anything and I'm hugging you and humming and maybe rocking you because, again, we're talking to the red brain that needs to feel safe first before we reach that other mode thinking brain. We're just not there yet. Doesn't mean we're not going to do that. It just means that for this part of the brain, supporting mental health and emotional development means that we are helping the child feel safe so that they can get to a place where they can reach their thinking brain. Sometimes we see more emotional behavior like the whining, like the throwing things. And in that case, we're going to do the same things. We're going to show up with co-regulation. We're going to show up sharing and modeling what calm feels like, meeting children at our level. But when we see that behavior that is less out of control, that is more so challenging us through their voice, their words, their throwing or tossing something our way, we're going to meet them with that additional empathy and validation. This part of the brain maybe is not quite a thinking place or being able to find solutions or work with us, but it is open a little bit more to language. So we can meet them with something like sportscasting, so we can connect with them about what happened. For example, sportscasting meaning we're simply describing what happened so that they know, I get it. Remember, this is part of the brain that is asking, do you get this? Am I loved here? Am I seen through what I'm going through? Sometimes that means saying, I get it. It's so hard. The shoe is not going in and you really want to do it by yourself. You don't want me to help you. You want to do this. Yeah, sometimes just that connection. Or like, he took your toy and you really wanted a turn. Or that is not available and you really want to use it. Ugh, how frustrating. I hear you. And then we set a boundary as needed. But sometimes that responsiveness and attunement in that moment means letting the child know that we see what's happening and then setting a boundary. Oh, I see that's not available, and I'm going to help you wait here until it is, or I can help you find another toy. That is kind of where we make that balance between validation and limits. But it is important that at this point, typically, what tends to happen is people ask me, well, Blanca, I'm doing all this validation and I know that I need to slow down and I know that I need to connect with the brain, but aren't I being permissive by doing this? Aren't I letting the child get away with the behavior? And my response there is always reminding you we are in those moments not talking to a thinking brain that is ready to learn. We teach and we engage in guidance, verbal and teaching new skills when the brain is ready to learn. And those other times when now you saw some behavior belongs in the emotional or the fight or flight brain, those moments need that co-regulation, need validation, need responsiveness and attunement. And the learning, the most powerful learning that happens in those moments is the child knowing that there is an adult there that is going to respectively guide them through that process until they can get to a calm state. This is what I mean when it comes to the brain and what you actually are teaching in those moments. What you see here is a neuron right there that is trying to make a connection with another neuron. And every time two neurons connect, they're creating a pathway that the neurons in the brain is going to remember. What you are doing when you share your calm, when you model what regulation feels like when the child is out of control, when you pause to help the child feel calm instead of trying to lecture them or trying to set a harsh limit or raising your voice, what you're doing in that moment is teaching calm. You're teaching regulation. Maybe you are not teaching what they should do next time. Next time somebody grabs their toy, or why hitting is not the right thing. Maybe you're not verbally giving that lesson in that moment. That moment you're focusing on supporting the child feeling calm. But you're doing this. You are doing exactly that. You're helping neurons in the brain connect. When I feel this, I get kindness and help until I feel ready and I reach my thinking brain. Those neurons connect, knowing that they can get from a state of fight or flight and anxious and anger, they can eventually get to calm. That's what that feels like. I can get there. This adult helped me get there. And next time that road gets easier. And it's a practice over and over and over that you are helping the brain do. It's a pathway that you're helping the brain create. Every time that you show up regulated, every time that you attune to the fact that the child may not be in control, so you offer your calm and the necessary boundaries until the child is ready. So, a very important moment to remind you that responsiveness, as we're talking about it, is not permissiveness. Responding to a child's emotions doesn't mean we don't set a boundary. This could be an entire new workshop, right? So we're gonna just breeze through this, and I'm just gonna mention this right now as a reminder that when we talk about responding to a child's emotion with warmth, with kindness, with validation, with keeping their brain in mind, doesn't mean we're not gonna set a boundary. We still are. But showing up with kindness and sharing our calm first and waiting for the child to calm down and to reach that thinking brain doesn't mean we're being permissive. It means that we are supporting their development, that we are helping them build pathways. When it comes to the discipline, and this is again a different workshop that we could do, right? But the reason this is important because research literature that has looked for decades at different parenting styles has shown us that when it looks at, if you see this graph and the level of rules and boundaries, how firm and how many rules and boundaries are available, and also how much warmth and connection is available in the relationship and in the parenting. There's 4 different types of parenting styles that have been looked at in the literature, varied in styles. For example, permissive, that is really high on warmth and connection, but is really low or really inconsistent when it comes to the rules and boundaries. It doesn't work well. It doesn't lead to the best outcomes. And equally, a home where there's a really high level of boundaries and rules, but there's a low level of warmth and connection and attunement, that attunement that we were talking about, also doesn't lead to the best outcomes when it comes to mental health and emotional development. It is the authoritative style, that balance of high level of connection with high level of boundaries and consistent rules that leads to the best outcomes. So just in sum for you to remember how to support your child's mental health when it comes to attunement and responsiveness is remembering that co-regulation teaches that regulation. That when your child is not in control and is not calm, they need to borrow your control. And that is not permissiveness. That is actually teaching the brain what calm feels like until you can reach that thinking brain and then you can do all of your other skill building. That's what we're talking about next. And knowing that kind and consistent, firm limits are essential to learning. It is, again, that balance. So let's talk about the practice of emotion regulation skills next, because then people ask me, well, then when do we do the deep breathing? How do we teach this regulation skills if I'm waiting? So the first part is attuning to the brain and supporting children and sharing what regulation feels like when the child is not in control. So, how we support practice of self-regulation skills at home that support mental health development for your young child is three main ways. By modeling what you want to see. So, all of those skills that were in the list of the thinking brain, asking for a turn, impulse control, telling others how you feel, sharing how you feel, or asking other people how they feel, or noticing something that is happening, or problem solving. How do you model that? Do you do that out loud? Do you do it automatically and don't tell your child what you're thinking? Or do they actually see the process of how you regulate your body? For example, let's say you forgot the peanut butter and you're trying to make a recipe, and suddenly you could get really dysregulated. You could get upset at your partner that they didn't buy the peanut butter, or you could get upset with yourself about it. You can give up on the recipe altogether, or you can kind of actually out loud say, "Oh, I forgot the peanut butter and we needed it for this recipe. I'm feeling so frustrated." Oh, let me take a deep breath. Okay, I'm trying to think about what we're going to do. I could give up, or we could try another recipe. Or we could try making it without peanut butter and see what happens. Okay. And then trying to find a solution. But through that brief example, you saw how out loud I may have actually said things and that my child didn't know were happening in my brain if I did all of that on my own. But modeling what we want to see sometimes is just on our day to day. Sometimes it's about pausing, slowing down, and saying out loud what it is that is happening within our own regulation so that the child can learn how we do it. Another part of practicing emotion regulation skills at home is kind of probably what you expected in terms of looking at emotions books and practicing identifying different emotions, playing games about emotions. That's emotion learning, identification, and verbalization. That happens mostly through play or the practicing squeezing a ball or how to use a calm space at home, how to take deep breaths. All of that, as you now saw, that learning doesn't take place during the red or blue brain, because those brains are asking, am I safe? Am I loved? They're not asking, what can I learn? Usually the um, the books, the learning, the motion games, the learning how to take a deep breath, all of those conversations typically happen when the child brain is ready. And that's not in the middle of a big emotion or a big struggle at home. Those conversations and that learning happens through play, through meal times, through you noticing, oh my gosh, I see you're feeling so proud about this. Show me what makes you proud about what you made. Oh, I see you're really happy. Look at your face. Look at that smile. I can see you're happy about this. Or noticing at the grocery store if a child is crying, saying, oh, that baby looks really upset. I wonder what happened. Something frustrating must have happened. Or sometimes we witness actually what happened. Oh, that baby fell and hurt their knee. I wonder if they're feeling scared or they're feeling really sad. Look, their mom is helping them. They're giving them a hug. All of that is emotional learning. And all of that is happening at a time when your child is probably joining you in that observation. That is when all of that learning happens. And the last thing in that list that I just showed you, I just took the slide away, was engaging in a discipline approach that supports so seeking solutions instead of negative consequences. Again, the brain learns when it's feeling safe. When we use negative consequences, punitive methods, or making the child scared or ashamed about what they did wrong in moments when they're having big emotions, they're going to further go into that feeling of unsafety and shame, and they're not going to learn. Again, think about that thinking brain and the fact that it is when they're calm, it is when their executive brain is back online that they are able to access the skills to learn. So, for practicing self regulation skills at home, I want to actually mention two important things to keep in mind when it comes to using emotion materials or materials to support emotional learning in your home, and a note about calm spaces or calming corners in your home, which I know are hot topics when it comes to young children and building an environment in your home that supports emotion learning. So, first, emotion regulation skills with emotion materials. So, there's books, there are posters, there's all sorts of things that can support your child's learning for emotion regulation. Important, again, that we use these tools when the brain is ready to learn, during play, during downtime, during one-on-one time with your child. It's important that you think about visuals as appropriate to each age. So, for example, for toddlers, visuals, when we're asking them, oh, how did that feel? That we're focusing on offering them no more than four choices. And that once they reach that primary age, that more 4, 5, 6 age range, that we can scaffold more and we can add additional emotions. And this is the reason why, specifically. Often we use these materials to ask children, how do you feel? Show me. Or were you feeling sad, angry? And what we know from science and from research that has looked at emotional learning in young children is that up until age 3, children cannot accurately identify more than those four emotions accurately. So when we're asking them, well, how do you feel? And we show them a poster with 12 different emotions, we're not asking them for something that is developmentally appropriate. So if you're going to have emotion posters in your calming space, in your home, in your environment, for children from the ages of 1 to 3, focus on those four main emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, and calm. And once they reach the ages of 4, 5, 6, expand to additional emotions, anywhere from 6 to 8, but no more. If you're going to use that poster to ask them how they feel or to ask to identify how they were feeling in a specific section. It doesn't mean that we do not offer books with a lot of different emotions. It doesn't mean we don't talk about other emotions. Of course we do. That content and that language they're taking in. Please offer all sorts of information about emotions, but when we're asking them how they feel, know that we need to scaffold and focus on, when it comes to toddlers, only offering them four choices to pick from, and then only expanding to additional choices once they reach the primary years. If you're going to have books about emotions or other materials for your child to learn about emotions, in line with the Montessori philosophy, and we know that we do this not just because of Montessori, but because the Montessori philosophy already approaches emotional learning in the way that we know is best from science, is that emotion books work best when they show real life scenarios. So, for example, a child going through an actual checkup, a child having to move and feeling sad about it, a child starting school, all of those kind of social stories, books that show a child a real life scenario, offers a lot of anticipatory guidance, like preparation for how they may feel when they may go through situation themselves. This is why books about real life scenarios are key for supporting their mental health and emotional development if they're going to move, if they're going to start school, if they're going to go to the dentist for the first time. And the other piece about it is making sure that they're reality-based images that reflect the face of an actual human, whether it is like an illustration like it shows here, or actual images of real children. Why? Because while there are many books that have a lot of cute images of animals smiling or being angry, that the young child is still building images based on relating themselves to other humans. So the more realistic the image is, or the more it is based on an actual image of another human, the better. And the other piece that I mentioned I wanted to talk about when it comes to practicing self-regulation skills at home is how to use the calming space. So, key moment here before you even look at this picture. Calming spaces or calming corners at home are a beautiful way to support emotion regulation skills and helping the child's system learn what calm feels like and know what tools they can use to get there. For example, a squeeze ball or something that they can smell to kind of connect with the world again, or a visual that they like, or a book that helps them understand, when I'm reading, I feel relaxed. But it's not a place for timeouts. It's not a place where we send the child to when there's a big emotion and we expect that they're going to know what to do. A calming corner or a calming space at home is a place for them to learn how to use those skills at times when they're already feeling calm, a place when they can experience the joy of learning, knowing what it feels like to just stare at like a sand clock or squeeze something and knowing what that regulation and that calm feels like, or a place where if they're experiencing a big emotion, you join them in that comfy, cozy place or corner that's away from everything else, and that you are there with them if you choose to in that corner as they reach calm, as you share their calm. It's a place where we are going to teach calm by them feeling it either on their own, if they're ready and they just use it during the regular day, or when you join them there so you can show them what calm feels like and you're co-regulating in that moment. It's not a place where we just send them to expecting that they're going to feel calm there without our guidance. So, with that said, a couple of things that I want or I like keeping in mind when it comes to building peace corners or calm spaces at home. Again, remembering this a place for co-regulation and be escalating, moving from the red to the blue to the green brain gradually with us, with our help. It's a space for learning when the brain is ready. Again, one-on-one connection time. It's an open invitation, not to use only when they're feeling angry or scared, but an open invitation for them to know you can come here whenever you want to. This is a place that's made for you to just use whenever you want to. And the other things that I think it's important for people to kind of keep in mind when it comes to the calming corners is including um, I'm so sorry, including elements that are able to ground the senses to regulation. Yes, co-regulation is really important, and how we show them how to reach calm and what calm feels like is really, really important. But also including elements like, for example, something that they can touch, a texture rug, or a squeeze ball, something that's sticky, something that they can pull, something that they can use with their hands, including even sometimes sitting on one of those inflatable seats, feeling something tactile. It's not just for their hands, but also for their whole body. A, a funny texture, a rug that has a funny texture that they can kind of like can wake them up. Visuals, sometimes a liquid motion timer, not just a sand clock, but sometimes there's liquid ones that are very visually appealing, something like that. Smell, don't forget about smell. Having a Montessori smelling jar there, or as a lavender pouch. Sometimes there's smell jars that you can make with herbs or essential oils and making sure that they're sealed appropriately, but something that they can smell or for children that get really overstimulating from sound, or that you realize, oh, when we use headphones, they actually can reach calm a little bit better, include the headphones there. You can see here how there's like in this space, and this was from my home from when my child was 3. It's not specifically a designated space that we created. It was just a corner in just our regular living area, just where the books were already at. It's just simply we created a little space here where there was like the sand clock and a little bit of a smelling jar and emotions books specifically in this area. And there was a poster that showed calmer alternatives. Like, do you want to hug? Do you want to read? Do you want to go outside? Do you want to have a drink of water? All of those can be part of that environment as well. So, with that said, now we can go into looking at avenues for promoting autonomy and belonging as the third element for nurturing mental health in your home. Now, this is the aspect, the aspect of supporting mental health in the home where Montessori shines. When children experience a world where they feel capable and trustworthy, they grow with skills that we know from scientific science support confidence, intrinsic motivation, executive functioning. So, all of those areas of work and memory, self regulation, emotional regulation, following steps, remembering steps, concentrating in all of those steps. All things that translate to emotional well being in the long run. So, not only that, but here's also why we know that it is crucial for everybody's development, even for parents, to support autonomy and building of educate independent skills at home. We know that supporting autonomy, so what we know in science as autonomy supported parenting, nurtures a child's self-regulation, including resilience and emotional awareness. When a child is able to feel the joy of completing a task. They learn what pride feels like. They learn how to get to that pride. So they don't depend on you to feel that joy and accomplishment. They know that there are things that they can do on their own to reach that level of joy, accomplishment, trust in themselves, and confidence. The supporting autonomy at home positively impacts the development of executive functioning skills as early as 18 months of age. Executive functioning skills are the skills that have to do with working memory, a child knowing what steps they need to do to accomplish a task, remembering those steps, having the flexibility to navigate frustration in the process if something happens. So think about in the Montessori environment, that might be washing the table and the different steps that it takes to wash a table and the frustration of spilling water or knowing what to do when you spill water or finishing. At home, it may be something as simple as learning how to dress themselves and being able to know that when they open this drawer, there's 2 choices of shirts. I reach for one. I kind of know how to put it on. Mom is there to help me if I need to, but the choice is mine between those two. And I know the steps to do that, and I know what it's going to feel like to accomplish that. And if I feel frustrated, I persist because I know the adult there is not going to do it for me. They're just going to give me the space to do it, and I know that I'm going to get there. So, all of that is executive functioning. That is Montessori, but that's what we also know in science as autonomy supported parenting for supporting executive functioning skills. And the one that I really like, and we found about this actually during research that was done during pandemic, was that autonomy supported parenting, nurturing independent skills at home, supports the sense of fulfillment within the caregivers. So parental well-being and child adjustment to transitions, meaning when the parent and the child have a trusting relationship where the child is given opportunities for autonomy, they grow in independent skills, they grow in that sense of mastery, so they're able to take on more of their day by themselves. Like for example, this example of them getting putting their own shirt on or being able to brush their teeth. Of course, that looks very different with a 2-year-old than with a 6-year-old, but when we have a practice of trusting the child and building an environment that helps us get there, there is more parental well-being. There is a sense of fulfillment in what we're teaching the child to do. So parent well-being increases. Now, the really important thing to keep in mind as we're nurturing independent skills at home for the purpose of mental health is keeping in mind what we call the Montessori triangle. which is a consideration of the fact that as we're building these skills for autonomy and belonging, we have to keep in mind the importance of the child, the important role of the adult. So, how are you going to support independent skills in service of mental health at home? Um, even this week, things that you can get started. So, first, think about your child. Think about what they already want to do themselves. They all of those efforts when they're like, no, me do, I do it, or they want you away, or they want to do it themselves, or they're trying to do something, and there's so much frustration in your home right now because they're trying to do something that they're not still not able to do because they're really little, or their hands are not there yet, or their motor skills are not there yet. All of those are examples of how clearly and how much they're looking for belonging in your home. It might be that they cannot do everything that they want to do yet, but those are signs that they're giving you about wanting to belong, wanting to feel worthy and trusted to be part of your home and being part of taking care of themselves and even others within your home. So think about what they already want to do themselves as you think about where do I start? All of those areas where they're like, I do it. Okay, let's find a way for you to do this in a way that fits your age. When children want to participate, they're telling you that they want to meet one of their main psychological needs, which is belonging. So they're eager for meaning. They're eager to find meaning, a meaningful role in the family. They see you doing important work. They see you helping take care of them. They see you accomplishing things during the day. If they have older siblings, they see older siblings doing so many things for themselves. So they naturally want to do this too. The way we start with independent skills is really not hard. Just think about areas that they can do, they can learn how something to do to take care of themselves. Like for example, choosing what to choose to put on their own body, learning how to put their own shoes on, self-care, helping to brush your teeth, even though you're going to take a turn after, but they take a turn brushing their teeth or rubbing lotion on their arm, even if it's imperfect. Taking care of the environment, watering plants, taking care of a pet, helping others, helping pour ingredients as you're cooking, or helping wash a dish, even if it's imperfectly, as you're washing dishes at the end of the meal, or helping to set the table or set just the napkins. Just how are they engaging in the home environment in a way that feels meaningful to them? How are you telling them this home wouldn't be the same without you participating in it? How are you doing that? And what are the possibilities for that to happen? All of this again looks different based on their age, right? It's a scaffolding process. But one important thing to remember as we're building autonomy is that your home life is not just about what you do inside your home, but also outside your home. Think about how you're helping a child feel trusted when you travel. Do they have their own luggage? Do they get to put whatever it is that they put in there because that's kind of what they want to pack and then pull the luggage in the airport? Do you help them feel like they belong in public? Help them to the degree that is possible, realistic, and within safety, walk through a museum without you having to pull them all the time. This requires scaffolding. This requires practice. This requires, I mean, this picture right here is not the first time we went to a museum, right? There's been many times before then. But how do you help your child feel like they belong in public, that they're trusted to be at a restaurant, walk in front of you a little bit in places where it's safe, walk in a museum if they've had the practice to do that and understand the rules? Um, and if there's holidays, how are they helping prepare for the holidays? This is an example of setting up lights for a holiday outside our home. Um, to do this again, you need sometimes help from the environment. We know this from Montessori so beautifully, right? We have a lot of pictures of prepared environments in the home, but here's the thing about preparing the environment. The most important thing that you need to remember is that regardless of what we're talking about, getting dressed, helping in the kitchen, putting on the wrong clothes, that you offer simple, clear, and limited choices. The wardrobe is a perfect example where we want them to start choosing to put on their shirt or put on pants, put on shoes, and we give them a full wardrobe and we say, what would you like to wear? That's not going to lead to a child making a choice. It's too much. So for a child that is age 1.5, 2, we put two shirts and two pants, and then we put them at reach. So they know that when they open that drawer, they're going to find two shirts to pick from, two pants to pick from, and at reach, that they're able to open that drawer themselves. And that as they walk into the door, there's a small chair where they can sit down and choose from the two shoes that are there to pick from. And that you're there to help them if you want to, but that those choices are theirs to make, that they're able to take care of themselves in that way. And in that similar way that you're able to have elements in your home that they can participate in, for example, kitchen or watering plants, or for example, if there's a pet or there are guests coming, that they can participate with that as well. For the environment, often the pictures that we get, if you go online and you seek Montessori home environments, the entryway is a perfect example. This was her home for a while, making sure that there's a space where, again, the child can sit before they head out the door, that there's two choices for shoes there. This changes with the weather, right? If there's sunscreen that they have to wear, or that everything is there. And that, for example, these two hooks are low in the ground so that the child can reach for whatever they need. In the winter, this looks very different and it's messy, and there's no perfect system for it, right? This is another example of appropriate size seating. But here's the thing about the environments, that often when we go online, we find curated examples. Even mine, I can tell you that maybe it looks too curated and it's not realistic, even for other times of the year. But it doesn't need to be like this. It could be as simple as, this was my child wardrobe initially, as a chair inside a closet with three baskets, one for two socks, one for two shirts, one for two pants, and that is a Montessori aligned environment. That is an environment that leads to autonomy supported parenting just as much as this other pretty example. The key here is simple, limited choices at reach, that through that invitation tell your child, your choice matters. You can do this. I trust you by offering you this opportunity. And then the important piece comes when it comes to the adult, because you can know what the child wants to do. You can identify areas in your life where they want to participate. You can set up the environment, but then you are the one that allows for this to unfold. So, a couple of tips for this to happen at home. If you're an adult that is starting or continuing to support autonomy in the home, remember, show. Slow hands, omit words. When you're showing a child how to do something for the first time, for example, putting their shoe on, don't talk as you're showing them. Simply slowly move your hands, look, and you grab their foot, you put it inside, you pull the back of the shoe, and they feel their foot slide in, and then you don't say anything. And at the end you say, see, it's on. So slow hands, omit words. That's one, maybe not that great example, but as you're showing a child how to do something, remember, first show, don't use words, move slowly, and then offer them a turn. Scaffold difficulty. I'm going to show you a picture of what I mean. But for example, for the wardrobe that I showed you in that closet example over here, that was the example at 18 months old. I'm going to show you another example what it looked like at age 3. We don't start with the full wardrobe as we're supporting autonomy. We're honoring the child's skills at each age and knowing that at first they only have the ability to make simple choices. So we prepare the environment accordingly. And it's okay to go slow at first. And we know from science that scaffolding difficulty, so moving gradually, adding gradual difficulty as we go, and not start with everything from the beginning, is what leads to more effective development of executive functioning skills. Always considering the child's perspective. Look at the environment as you're setting up environments, literally from their eye level. Get down on the floor. What does this room look like to my child's eye level? If I am 2 and I am this short and sit down on the floor, What does opening this drawer feel like? Can I see over it to see what the choices are? Think of your child's perspective and offer a choice through the environment. Have two available for them to pick from. And embracing imperfection. Often, when we are engaging children in being part of our home, I gave you a couple of examples already of washing plates and they're imperfect. They're sitting at the table and it's kind of like messy, or they're brushing their teeth and it's not going to be great. So they take a turn and then you take a turn. Embracing imperfection is part of it, it's part of the process. Perfection doesn't is not what builds autonomy and all of the skills that we are seeking, which are confidence, self-trust, executive functioning, joy, self-worth. Those are through the opportunities you offer and how proud they feel they are to but they feel as they participate. They don't feel pride through the perfection. That's something that we expect. That's what we attribute to the situation. So don't expect imperfection. When mishaps happen, when they're not able to make a choice, or when the task feels too messy, or when you offer an opportunity and it doesn't go well to what we consider well, don't do anything. Just let it go. Take that as a mental note, however, for how you need to maybe make changes on the environment, or maybe you need to present it differently, or you need to make other choices. But here's the other piece about it. In order for autonomy and independent skills to build and to flourish, we need to let them flourish. We need to let the child do what we may want to do or help with. Look at my hands. I'm like literally just holding my hands because I'm like, he's struggling. And I'm like, I know if you pull this other thing, it would get easier. I know that. But he doesn't know and will not learn unless he tries. So Montessori used to say, sit on your hands, bite your tongue, let the child work. Another example of how I'm like just holding my hands over here. This is an example of slow hands, no words. We were working on a holiday display and I was trying to build belonging by him setting up this fancier table. So he did eventually all of the napkin arrangements, but first I showed him all of the parts and where I was gonna go. And then I said, your turn. And I gave him all the materials to do his own. And then he moved with the rest. But an example of slow hands omit words. And I talked about scaffolding and how the wardrobe looked very differently from way age 1.5 to age 4. When we talked about building autonomy, this is what I meant. When children are 2, I have so many families that come to me at 2 and 3, and they're like, getting dressed is such a struggle. They don't make the choices. There's a small wardrobe and they don't use it, or it's a fight every time. And then I look at their wardrobe and it looks like this, which is what my child had at age 4. We started over here, again, with a simple basket that had 2 shirts in it. And then gradually we moved on to having 3 choices and pajamas being involved, and eventually more choices. And eventually now we had a rack with more things and preferences based on colors and different things, right? You will get there. If you don't feel like you're there yet, know that you will get there. There is no rush. For this next slide, um, you can take a picture. I'm going to show you different options of areas where you can support practical life at home and start thinking about where to offer opportunities for engagement and independence. You're like, where do I start? But some examples of how to build independence or where to begin with what we call practical life skills at home for self-care, getting dressed, brushing their teeth, combing their hair, feeding themselves. All of these look different at different ages, from 1.5 to 3 or 4. But are you engaging them and doing these things for themselves? Taking care of the environment. Are they joining and making the bed? And again, what are we expecting? Are we expecting that it's going to be perfect? Because that's not it. But are they pulling the covers over? That's engaging. And are you ensuring that you do some sort of bed making every morning? Putting their PJs or their dirty clothes in the hamper, caring for plants. Participating in trash day, taking the recycling out. You can figure out what this looks like in your home, but these are some examples. And daily life outside of their home. Are they carrying their own backpack as they go into the school? Are they able to get in and out of their car seat by themselves? Or do you find yourself carrying them all the time, carrying them in, carrying them out? And if you have, there's nothing wrong with this. These are just simply ideas to kind of spark some curiosity about you and your relationship with your child and what areas of your daily life you may be able to kind of offer more trust, offer more belonging, offer opportunities for them to grow. So it may be that the material that we have reviewed today, you were already aware of, and you're like, well, so like supporting my child's mental health is just continuing to do these things. And yeah, it's just continuing to do these things. It's not that complicated. Some of it, as you probably know, is challenging to do on a daily basis. It is not perfect and it shifts drastically from each, probably every 6 months, you find yourself kind of having to recalibrate as your child grows. But this is it. It may be that some of this material today that you heard is new for you. You're like, whoa, where do I start? You're feeling overwhelmed by it. Again, know that it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect for your child as they're doing independence, for example, but it doesn't have to be perfect from you either. All of this and the impact that these three elements, a responsive adult, supporting independence and nurturing emotional regulation skills and offering an environment that helps them do that. All of these things make an impact when you engage in them consistently most of the time, but it's not realistic to ask you to do this perfectly all the time. You're not going to respond to every emotion perfectly. You're not going to all the time think about how you're modeling self regulation. You're not always going to show up as a beautiful, prepared adult that we kind of painted today. This is a goal, but it's one that I want you to think about as more of an 80-20, where you aim for it 80% of the time, and the other 20% of the time, life will happen. 80% of the time, you're going to have the energy to support independent skills and autonomy. 20% of the time, you're going to find yourself getting them dressed because you need to get going. And that's okay. So just know that mental health is just joining your child in their emotions and helping them grow through all of them, walk through all of them. If you need support, please reach out to your physician or to your teachers or educators that you know or other caregivers so that you can get support if you feel that you need to. Reach out to me if you need to and guidance in that aspect. But just know that it doesn't have to be perfect because also mental health is emotions are not perfect. You experience a wide range of emotions as well. And your child, knowing that you are not perfect and you experience all sorts of emotions as well, is part of them growing in a healthy environment. I hope you're doing well. I hope that you keep learning. Thank you for taking the space to watch this session and the rest that are coming your way. There's so many today and in the coming days that I urge you to watch, also related to emotional development, positive discipline, and nurturing independence, and more. Thank you to the Childhood Potential team to helping me host this session. My information is there if you wish to reach me later on. But otherwise, have a wonderful day and thank you for watching.